we were talking about Ulasht on the super secret commanderin group, and somebody said like all he wanted was hugs. It was probably Nick, and that's when I was like, oh wow.
It was Thacker talking about Crash.
Oh yeah, that's right, Crash. All he wanted was a hug, and he wouldn't give it to him.
And by hug, he means hero's downfall in the face repeatedly.
I'm Phil DeLuca.
I'm Nate Burgess.
And I, as always, am Sean Watson.
And we are Commanderin. Bam, 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 bam. Cool theme song. Yeah. 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 Commanderin. Yeah.
I am a robot.
Excellent, excellent. That's a great theme song. Thanks for listening, everybody. We focus on topics the community wants to hear about and talk to interesting people along the way, and we've been saying that a while without actually having a guest, and we will be having some special guests coming up soon, folks. But never, ever will we talk about 3 banned topics, will we, guys? Religion? Nope. Politics? Nope. And Hearthstone? Nope.
Now, on that note, can I just apologise for my behaviour last week?
The last episode in which you hated on American Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I apologise, America. It was 99% said in Josh, other than the stuff about Walmart infecting my country with Black Friday.
Yes, that part was true. And in fact, I read about it subsequently. It seems like it's quite a tragedy. It's being reported like it's a terrorist incident.
Just imagine if those people had guns.
Oh, we don't have to imagine that. We see reports on that ourselves.
Anyway.
Okay. Hey, did we get on politics or religion there? We did, didn't we? You can find us on...
We didn't do religion.
Oh, not yet? Speaking of, it is, as we record this, it is Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights.
It is.
So anybody who gets this, happy Hanukkah. If it's after Hanukkah that you're hearing this, then belated happy Hanukkah. And we hope that your Festival of Lights was bright.
And full of delicious donuts.
Oh, delicious donuts. And wine.
Hey, Phil, where can our listeners find us?
You know, Sean, I'm so glad you asked, because I was just thinking maybe we should tell them they can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Reddit, iTunes, and mtgcast.com by searching for, that was my radio voice. I'm trying to be like, a radio voice unlike any ever heard in podcasting. commanderin.mtg.podcast. That's just search for commanderin.mtg.podcast on any of those and you'll find us. This week we have a wonderful show lined up for you. We're going to shine a spotlight on how we playtest Magic when we're each in different cities, and we're going to shine another spotlight, 2, that's right, 2 for the price of 1. The second one on underrated cards in Commander. But first, we have some news. Some news spoilers just before record time. And again, these are very speculative. We don't know if they're true. Were just released, and we pulled them from mythicspoilers.com. And I think they're pretty interesting if true. They're from Oath of the Gatewatch, which of course we are calling Guardians of the Gate to See.
Yes.
And the first one, Nate, do you want to cover this first one?
Sure. The spoiler is in Russian, so I'm going to read the translated text. Mina and Dan, Wildborn. 2 red-green. Legendary creature, elf ally. 4/4. You may play an additional land each turn. Red-green, return a land you control to its owner's hand. Target creature gains trample until end of turn.
You went Irish on me at the end of there.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to stay Russian. I guess I got the cadence wrong.
No, it's alright. You can be half Irish, half Russian. You can be Stanislav O'Brien.
Yeah, okay, so Mina and Den, Wildborn. If true, if this is an actual spoiler, it's pretty cool. The one that's been posted is a foily card. It's a pre-release foil card.
In Russian.
In Russian, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Do svidaniya. That's the only word I know.
Soviet Russia magic plays you.
So what do we think? What do we think of this card? A card that bounces land back to its owner's hand and allows you to play an additional land each turn. Sounds like a landfall card.
Yeah, it's useful in Angry Omnath or Angry Borborygmos.
It's got a lot of uses. I'm trying to think if there's a place for it in Maelstrom Wanderer. I think there might be.
How so? How would you use it in Maelstrom?
Using the trample trigger.
Yeah, got it. That's pretty good.
Also lets you ramp. And Maelstrom Wanderer is a deck that tends to have a handful of cards in it a lot if you've built it correctly.
So you'd probably play it in any deck where you'd also play Scarred the Ridge Pits?
Yep, or what's the other one? Kessig Wolfrun. It's very good for if you've got any lands that have like a Bajuka Bog, so it'll be good in a Jund deck where you can bounce the Bajuka Bog and hate on people's graveyards over and over.
Well, Phil, you know more about landfall than I do. Tell us about how landfall works with this guy.
So I thought you were going to say, Phil, you know more about hating on people's graveyards than I do.
I do know more about that. Because I'm the one who suffers the most when Nate hates on graveyards. Well, landfall triggers are awesome in green decks in particular because you have Avenger of Zendikar, you've got Rampaging Baloths, and a couple of other cards, and of course Angry Omnath in a red-green deck. So with this being able to effectively give you 2 landfall triggers, for a Rampaging Baloth, that means that you're getting 2 4/4 creatures every turn. Every one of your turns, because of course you can't usually play lands on your opponent's turn. And then there are some that have more mundane trample triggers on their own. Now, of course, this gives a target creature trample, but you might only have one that gets trampled because of landfall. And of course, Avenger of Zendikar, the more lands you can put into play after you've dropped Avenger of Zendikar, the better, because that gives each of your plant creatures a +1/+1 token. So in terms of landfall, this definitely goes into a red-green landfall deck. I think I may have one, and of course, friend of the show, Nick Cheragosky, has his Angry Omnath deck, which is just brutal. I think we'll be hearing more about that in the future, too.
And Karametra, too. She's also kind of landfall.
I do have a landfall deck with Karametra in it.
Right. So is there a white, red, green commander that would use both of these?
Well, Marit is just a general all-around good white, red, green commander to use.
Marit doesn't really focus on what both of these landfall commanders are trying to do.
No, that's true. Yeah, I'm just saying in general, Marit is a fun little... If you need white, red, green, you could do worse than Marit. But for landfall, unless I'm drawing a blank, Nate, I don't recall any Naya-colored generals that care about landfall.
Niall, you want mana to start activating her ability, I guess.
Right.
And
she's basically a big mana commander, able to pull things from your hand at instant speed.
I'm thinking in edge case, Hazazon Tamar.
That is such an edge case. I did not know what that card does.
Wow.
Because he gets Sand Warriors based on the number of lands you control.
Right.
My only comment on that would be, I think this is a good card for being within the 99 of several decks. I'm not sure of its value as a commander itself.
I agree.
Right, it's kind of a stretch, and in Gruul there's definitely red and green. There's definitely a better commander for landfall, and that's Omnath, Angry Omnath, who is still, or now I should say, fairly inexpensive, so go pick yourself up one of those if you want to play with landfall, and put Mina and Den in the 99.
Or Angry Borborygmos might want to put lands back in his hand for some reason.
Yeah, for some reason. And then maybe discard them at instant speed.
So,
I'll be honest with you. I'm so averse to thinking about Angry Borborygmos because of the beating I received at your hands.
Yay.
Ball Missing Rage is fun.
Well, that was a one-on-one game.
Oh, he's hard in one-on-one. Really hard.
Yeah, it's tougher when there are more opponents.
So, moving on to the next spoiler, I was quite excited about it until I realised that it's an expedition land. It's Mystic Gate, which is one of the Lorwyn block filter lands. By filter lands, we mean you can pay one of the two respected colours of that land, and that allows you to tap it to add two of either, for example, Mystic Gate is double white, white blue, or double blue. Or you can tap it to add one colourless mana to your mana pool. So we don't know if these are getting reprinted into Guardians. It would seem odd if they were, bearing in mind they've got allied coloured dual lands already in Standard at the moment. So presuming this is just an expedition land, people aren't going to see them that much anyway. The more interesting thing about this spoiler is the reprint of Mystic Gate has, and this is presuming the other spoilers for this set have been true so far, the other Mystic Gate, the new Mystic Gate has, instead of tap to add one colourless to your mana pool, it has tap to add one diamond mana to your mana pool, which gives us some indicator of how that mechanic will work.
Yeah, so again, we don't know if these spoilers or the last ones are actual cards, but that does definitely lend credence to your theory, Sean, that diamond is actually just the word for mandatory colorless, right?
Yeah.
Where the diamond mana it requires 2 mana from sources that are colorless, or it generates a truly colorless mana. And so things like soul rings would actually be printed now with diamond.
Yeah, which is going to get interesting. So I think still the example card for how this is going to be a little odd is going to be that new Kozilek that got spoiled or didn't get spoiled, depending on whether you believe it's real or not. I'm inclined, just for the record, I'm inclined to believe these things are real now.
Yeah.
Each spoiler that you see with the diamond mana makes all of them more credible.
Yeah, I agree. So
yeah, because none of them have been outlandish. If any of them had used it in some outlandish way, it would be it would maybe put the lie to it, but it doesn't seem to be the case.
So looking purely at the casting cost, because we've already discussed the card in the last show, the Kozilek, he will require you to pay 8 mana from any source and 2 mana specifically from sources which only generate or can generate colourless mana. So if you have 10 forests in play, you can't cast that Kozilek.
Unless you have a soul ring or any rock that makes something. Not a gilded lotus, though.
Yes, that is a different example to the example I gave, but you are correct. Yeah, okay. But I might also have, in using the same example, I might have Animar with 10 tokens on him in play. You know. So, in my example, which is if you only had 10 forests in play, you can't cast the new Kozilek using the new diamond mana mechanic. Whereas you would need 8 forests and an untapped soul ring, or 8 forests and a Mystic Gate and a
Arcane Lighthouse,
or a relic.
A land that makes colorless mana, or a mana rock that makes colorless mana.
Could you guys think of an example? I'm going to ask the question anyway and then answer it. I was going to say, can you guys think of an example where they've gone back and errated a card before? Nothing springs to mind, but then I'm thinking, hang on, every single card in Magic has got Oracle text somewhere along the line, so they've done it multiple thousands of times. So I am an idiot.
Yeah, but this one's a pretty big change. If they did go back, say, and hypothetically change soul rings to produce diamond mana, then that's kind of large, right? I mean, it's a fundamental change in the way the rules... It's a fundamental way in the way the rules are perceived about cards.
Yeah, it's a big one. I haven't seen much apocalyptic fallout from the community about this. Maybe we'll see that if it becomes official.
Yeah. lots of things change, and the community gets into an uproar when things are made official.
Hey, I've just realised, when I gave the example of Animar before, when being slightly facetious with Nate, Animar reduces the casting cost of cards by 1 colourless for each token on it.
Yeah, it does.
So, are they going to change that to be reduces it by diamond, or are they going to leave it as it is, and then you can't cast the Kozilek with Animar? Anyway, until we see a big rules FAQ on this thing, if it is real, I think we're going to have a lot of questions like that. And one of the things I used to like to do when I used to play Warhammer or various other tabletop games was to in-depth analyse the rules, try and find holes in them, not to exploit, but just to say, right, how would I, if I were designing this game, elegantly eliminate this problem?
Right. That's what you call it.
And my problem that I'm trying to elegantly eliminate is often Nate and Phil.
Well, that's how competitive games work.
It's true.
This is the only game I've played where we can sometimes get into somewhat acrimonious rules debate, and then afterward everybody's like, whatever, we'll just play again. Most of the times people are like, let's just take a break.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just me.
No, when playing Warhammer, if I was at a tournament weekend, and I played a particularly difficult opponent, sort of rules lawyery opponent, and it was maybe game 4 of the weekend, so I've still got 2 to 4 more games to play. There were points where just like, if I wasn't in like a top 10 position, I would be packing up my models and going home right now.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was excited about Mystic Gate, but then I realised it's an expedition land, and I'm less excited, more interested in them changing the mana symbol on it.
Yeah. And of course, once again, this is very speculative. Mystic Gate is, the spoiler is from a photograph on a chair. It could be completely made up. It could be doctored. Who knows? I guess we'll find out in about a month. All the spoilers will be done.
Yeah, it's not far off, actually. This one's crept around pretty fast.
Yeah, it has. It's exciting. I think, by the way, okay, so I almost went down a Vorthos tangent. We should actually go down a Vorthos tangent next episode. How's that?
He's going down the Vorthos hole. Quick, pull him out, pull him out.
Ooh.
No, Phil.
Yeah, that sounds disgusting.
It doesn't matter that in that picture Thassa still has a Biden, when in the storyline you know that Kiora had it by this point. It doesn't matter. You can still put the card in your deck.
No, it totally does. I can't put that card in my deck now.
Uh-huh.
And besides, and even the Biden of Thassa is the wrong color now. We all know the Biden of Thassa is coral colored.
No, it's clearly reddy, pinky, fleshy coloured, or whatever it is.
So in other news, Phil is back in Los Angeles, but my environment has changed somehow, and so there may be some cicadas in the background, apparently. And Sean is enjoying post-hurricane weather as Hurricane Desmond has swept by, blasted his neighborhood to shreds with the exception of his own house. And debris is raining down upon his head even as we talk. Is that right? Do I have that right?
Yeah, you're pretty close. I mean, it's an English hurricane, so what it actually means is a little bit of bad winds, someone's cat got bothered, maybe a bin got flipped over, and the papers are going a bit mad. What it has done, though, is damaged my guttering, and now if you can hear a rhythmic tapping in the background, that is the rain now landing on the roof of the conservatory that I record in, which will be fixed during the week. But if you hear a rhythmic tapping, just use it, listeners, to time any musical instruments you're playing. Use it as a metronome. Perhaps use it to send yourself off into a gentle sleep. Sleep, listeners, sleep.
Oh, what's that, Sean? I fell asleep while you were talking. I was sort of listening to that rhythmic tapping behind you, and it just lulled me. It's good to know that you record in a conservatory, though.
Well, it's sort of an extension of the house / conservatory. So my kitchen is like tripled in size, but is now like a large open area. Hey, listeners, are you enjoying hearing me talk about the inside of my house? That's why you tune into Commander In.
That's right.
I like hearing about how it rains in England.
Does it often rain in England? That's the question.
Yes. Yes, it does. There you go. The question's answered.
Well,
anyway.
so
moving on.
It's the Seattle of the old world.
The old world.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yes, it is.
As someone who's been to Seattle myself, I can concur it is a very similar climate to that part of Washington.
Our main topic this week, it's not actually English weather, but it is one of them. We have two main topics. We're going to talk about technology that we use to play test our decks, and we evaluate cards that way, and we do all sorts of things. And we do this as a podcast. It's the three of us. We are in three separate locations. Nate's in San Francisco. Sean is in Bury, in England. I don't even know where that is. You can name a place, Bury?
It's a suburb of Manchester.
A suburb of Manchester. And Phil is in Los Angeles. And then our second topic, which we'll get to in a few minutes, is underrated cards in Commander. So you've got a doubleheader this week, ladies and gentlemen. And so let's get rolling on that. So it's worth noting as we talk about technology that we don't have a pre-existing relationship with any of the developers of these products. That said, if any of them want to provide sponsorship, we're happy to do that because like Penny Arcade, we will only promote products we personally believe in and use. It's the only real way a sponsorship can be true and kind of be representative. Unless they pay us a lot of money, in which case we will be happy to carry whatever sponsorship just shovels money at us because we like money. We, after all, are in podcasting for the money, aren't we, gentlemen?
Mm-hmm. It's like Notch with Minecraft.
Sorry.
Oh, that's true.
Sorry, I was busy smoking my Cuban cigars while sipping on my Cristal champagne to listen to you.
Yeah. Hold on, I have some cognac right here. It's fine. 150-year-old cognac. So, playing, of course, involves preparation, and this is a process I've used both for Paper Magic and for play testing decks with the fine hosts of the Commander In podcast. I use an application called Decked Builder on my iPad. It's Decked Builder. We'll include a link in the show notes. And it's essentially a collection organizer, and this is how I found it. I needed a way to kind of keep track of my collection of cards because it was getting large, even though I only really care about the EDH usable cards. I have some others for trade. And so it's a collection organizer. It also will take pictures of your cards, and you have to purchase these modules separately to do that. And that's great after a draft. You know, when you come back and you've got 6 packs or so of a particular... when you come back and you've got 3 packs, I automatically went to sealed. When you come back and you have 3 packs of cards and you just want to store them all really quickly, if you have all of these cards from the same set, you can photograph them using the application and it will automatically build a list that uses those cards. So it's incredibly convenient. We just got the Commander 2015 precons, and those are just hellish to enter if you don't have some way to say, choose the set Commander 2015 and then photograph them individually. The process I use is I rest the iPad against my chest, or I sometimes have an armature that holds the iPad. So I'll put the iPad in an armature and I'll attach that to my tabletop and point it down at the cards that I want to scan. The application then displays a little picture of that card, and you can tap that and it will photograph the card. It actually processes it, it parses it right there into the card entry. And you watch it do that, and if it does it accurately, you're cool, and if not, you adjust it a little bit and you take the picture. Generally speaking, it gets every card right away, so it's a very speedy entry of your card collection if you're doing it by set. And the only times it gets something wrong is if you've got a bit of a glare and your cards are sleeved and maybe there's a little bit of extra glare, you see. And so you'll just have to adjust it and take it again. But most of the times it's a real time saver. It even reads foils pretty well. And by pretty well, I mean it reads foils well unless, again, I've got sleeves and an extra light source and stuff like that. So it speeds card entry into your collection. But then you can choose to build a deck as well, and you can build a deck from any card right, from the entire set of Magic cards, or you can restrict it to just the cards you own. So when I'm shopping for cards or looking for additions to new decks, and this is why we playtest them, or I playtest them, I will sometimes add cards, and then you're able to purchase just the cards that you don't already own. And if you want to, you could also purchase the cards you already own, but that's maybe if you only have like one doubling season, for example. And so it speeds up card collection, organizing, deck building, and ultimately card purchasing if you want. Yeah, it's great. It divides it into groups like creatures and spells. You can even subdivide it into more detailed groups like it only does creatures, but then the spells can be each of the different types of spells. It provides mana curve analysis. You can add basic lands, so once you get to like 60 cards or so, you can just add basic land cards until you get to 100. And that's my process. And then I replace basic lands with special lands based on the need of the deck. And it also saves it both to the iPad itself and saves it online if you've got an internet connection to Dropbox. That becomes important in a few minutes. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, so I am also a decked builder user. I use it for all my deck construction stuff, so I'll have it open on my phone or my non-Fruit branded tablet device, and then I'll have EDHREC open on my computer so I can just have a look at what other people are doing when I'm brewing. As far as when you're actually finish the deck brew, what Phil didn't mention is decked. You can test your decks on it as well. You can goldfish on it, and you can it has a cool little interaction where you can basically analyze your deck and how it's going to perform for the first few turns of a game, and you can adjust your deck accordingly, so how you feel you're doing. My process for building decks is I always start with a flat base of 36 land and 8 mana rocks, and then adjust accordingly once I've inputted 64 cards into my deck, or minus the 8 mana rocks as well, depending on mana curve and need of the deck, etc. But get everything else done before I fix the land, and that gives you a better picture for what you're about to do.
That's great that you point that out. You can save a deck, load that deck so it has like a deck template, like you say, right? The 8 mana rocks and 36 lands. Rename it so that you don't change that template, if you will, and then build your deck up from there.
Yeah, and that's what I do. So I have various versions of decks. So Lazav's a good example because he's evolved many, many, many times. I have a basic template for all the sort of locked-in cards for that deck in my deck builder, and then I can tinker without going, oh, what did I do? I need to go back and fix that, and I can't remember where it came from. So, yeah, good advice.
Yeah, that's great. Nate, how do you build decks?
I build in the Cockatrice client itself. I do my card research with gatherer.wizards.com and lately edhrec.com. I can also do the template trick, just managing my save files.
Right, because Cockatrice allows you to load pre-constructed decks as well, so if you wanted to do the same, you could.
Yeah, I make my own templates and start from there.
Awesome. All right, so that's how we prepare. Now, we mentioned Dropbox, and Nate, I don't know if you use Dropbox in your process. Probably don't, because if you're building in Cockatrice, you don't need to.
Nope.
Decked Builder will save to Dropbox, and since I have an account that's otherwise languishing and really wants to be used, I use it for that. And Dropbox is great because it will automatically sync to your computer that you happen to be playing either any of the various clients, and of course we tend to use Cockatrice. We'll get to that. And so it syncs it to your computer, and depending on how you set it up, that means that those decks are immediately available for play. Yeah, so I'll explain how I do that in just a minute. So Nate, you don't use Dropbox, but Sean, do you use Dropbox?
I have an account, and I'm letting it languish, so I should probably use it. What it's very good for is if you are trying to put decks up and move decks around through different digital formats. It makes it a lot quicker than inputting whole decks into things. So, for example, the Cockatrice client, I can take decks, build a deck, and put it onto Cockatrice very quickly, rather than having to sit going, sorry, I'm tapping my key, desk there, just automatically tapping cards into Cockatrice one by one. So I should use it more, I guess. It is good. It is good. It's just, it's one of those things where my brain puts it to the back of my head for some reason. But I will start using it more.
Yeah, I recommend it. You can get to playing faster. Plus, if you want to make a change, you can do it in Deck Builder, and you can do it in Deck Builder, and then almost immediately play it. Right, if you were trying to iterate on a particular deck. Right, and so that iteration is important because we use the Cockatrice client when the three of us are playtesting. So very often we'll come up with a brew, not really know how it operates, not want to take the time to build it in paper, or not have the cards, right, to build it in paper. And if we want to see how those cards perform or how the deck performs, it's very useful to have a client to play it. And a client is something that you use just because a lot of people aren't familiar with this terminology. A client is basically something that's connected to the internet that runs on your computer. Now, it may mean that the smarts of the application are somewhere else, maybe on a server somewhere. But the idea is that this is the user interface that allows you to send data across the internet. So in this very brief version, it's full of holes. Don't try to look at it too closely. But the client we use for Magic the Gathering playtesting is Cockatrice. That's a card game client that was developed by Woogerworks, and we'll provide a link to the Woogerworks website in our show notes. While it is generic, the version that we download seems to be configured for Magic the Gathering by default. We've posted a couple of pictures of our Cockatrice games to our Twitter account, so you can check it out there. I'm sure Nate will throw an image maybe up on YouTube just to show people what it looks like. But there's a nice handy interface along the side that we use to indicate what phase of the turn we're in. It steps through all of the combat phases and allows you to see your hand, look through your deck, do all sorts of fun things. Basically everything you can do in Paper Magic except physically touch the cards. And in my case, smell the cards. Oh, such good cards.
So Cockatrice is interesting. It's a little clunky when you first use it.
Yes, it is.
You really need to have someone who is familiar with it and is patient with you, sitting with you and talking through the hotkeys and the quick, the sort of quick access to where things are. Otherwise, it is very, very basic. Also, the Cockatrice client, I don't know if you knew this, Phil, is actually a digital version of the puzzle box from the Hellraiser movies. And if you tap the right cards in the right sequence, it will actually open up a portal to a whole, to an unholy portal to a dimension of exquisite pain and suffering. Sorry.
An exquisite dimension of pain and suffering.
Wow. This is kind of scary. You just by invoking this, you've made our show notes kind of wiggly and dancing.
What's your pleasure, Mr. DeLuca?
Whatever my pleasure is, it involves green. Oh, green.
See, if you were a real Hellraiser fan, you would have known the answer there is the box.
Yes. So, we've experimented with a few other clients, and we won't go into them, but in general, the other clients have a slightly harder to use interface. Their card databases don't necessarily update as frequently, and you may have your favorite, and that's great. What we've chosen to do on Commanderin in order to playtest is we just stick with Cockatrice and we playtest with that. So, how we actually playtest, right? A lot of people ask us, and the reason we're doing this episode now is because the community that follows us on Twitter and Facebook have been asking us, how do you guys play?
I think the question, how do you guys play each other when you're in 3 different cities across the world, might be, or the sub-question of that is, how can we play with you, might be our top asked question more than anything.
Yeah, probably. Sean, you've started something recently where you're using Facebook to kind of send messages back and forth about different playtests we might be organizing.
So,
is that correct?
Yeah. So Facebook, I don't know if you're familiar with this website. It's quite new. And it's a small independent site. But anyone that uses Facebook, I appreciate there are some people that are sort of anti-Facebook and refuse to use it. But if you like us on our Commanderin page, which is commanderin.mtg, Facebook, just like us there and message us or message us individually. You can find us on there with our normal stuff. I created just a little Facebook Messenger group called The Inner Circle.
What? I think the point is that on Facebook you can have private group conversations that you cannot have on Twitter.
Yeah. So you can sit and talk to each other and sort of just put a message out saying, anyone want to play? And then it's not just us doing it. Any of you guys that want to play that meet each other and befriend each other can use that as well if you're in that group. And we will...
Or start your own group.
Yes. Once we've met you a few times, we can put you through the process. And you can go up the bridge to freedom and become clear. And then...
or completed. Or perfected.
Or hazed.
Or hazed.
And then once you're in there, you give us your credit card details, and we'll let you subscribe to the command. No, hang on, no, we're not doing that. You told me we're not allowed to do that. No, but we just use it as a way of talking to people, and then we've got 7 or 8 people on there now that we can just put a buzz out. And there are a few people that we've played with a few times that aren't on that group yet as well.
Yeah, so what we do, though, Cockatrice has a little messaging client built into it. Like it's all the way in the corner, though, and it's just not as good. And since we're playing with friends, it's not as good as actually being able to hear each other. But we haven't used the video for a very long time. And so when we mention that we're playtesting on Skype, and we're getting together on Skype, this is actually how we're recording the show as well. We're all over Skype and talking to each other, and that helps us go through the Cockatrice client and learn how to use it. There are various, there's a culture, a way to use the Cockatrice client that only becomes apparent with experience. And if, like me, you tried to go out onto the public, into the public world and just use it, you might run into some people who are less than pleasant. But that's a risk you take whenever you are on any sort of online tool.
Some players are not as tolerant of noobs as others.
No.
You could say that
no, not at all.
Some players are online tools.
That's probably a better way to put it. So we use Skype to talk. It's ubiquitous. It was more reliable than Google Hangouts was when we first started this about a year ago. And it's really its ubiquity that keeps us using Skype, because we can ask people, oh, do you have Google Hangouts? And then they have to go through the process of installing the plugin or setting it up. Or we can just say, hey, do you have Skype? And they say yes. So we get together on Skype, all of the players in a game, and sometimes some spectators will join our Skype conversation. And we talk through it. And it's great because then we can say things like, I'm tapping this for green mana instead of tapping a dual land and then adding a green mana to it. And it helps us with the shortcuts rather than just sticking to a very silent text-in button-only interface when we're playtesting. We get together, we playtest on that. It saves the games so you can evaluate them later. It's an all-around very good experience, and it really brings us up the curve fast in terms of being able to evaluate these cards. The Karametra Enchantress deck that I run in paper is a result of being able to playtest it in Cockatrice. And these two worthy gentlemen, in fact, helped hone Karametra Enchantress. Do you guys have any other decks that you honed because of our playtesting on Cockatrice and Skype?
All of them.
Wow, that's right.
Yeah, the Crufix Eldrazi deck was very much a Cockatrice creation that then got turned into paper.
Yeah. And for me, the Karametra Enchantress started in paper, but then I honed it online. But my Hail Hydra deck with Edric as the commander came about on purely digital and then manifest it in paper once I had the deck list set up. One of the things we should do, guys, is make sure we provide the deck list for the ones we've mentioned. So I'll add my stuff to the show notes, and if you can do that as well, that'd be awesome.
Anything that's on DeckStats.net.
All right. And gentlemen, one of the corollary effects of this of our playtest process is that it's helped us evaluate several cards that we think are underrated in the EDH community. Now, Sean, this was kind of a pet topic for you.
Yeah.
As we shift into our second main topic, this is the doubleheader, folks. Oh. Do you want to set this up and then talk about it?
So, yes, underrated cards in Commander specifically. So what do we mean by underrated? My definition of it for the purpose of this topic is cards that feel good, not necessarily cards you automatically put in every deck, but when you have used them, tested them out, they've been absolute houses, just really, really powerful, and leaves you head scratching yourself saying, why isn't this card used much more widely in our format? This was inspired by my first pick for these underrated cards. I put a question out in the last show to the community to list some of theirs, and we'll come to those at the end. So the card that inspired this topic was Spelltwine, and I know you two have been on the end of a Spelltwine from me a few times. Spelltwine is 5 and a blue for a blue sorcery, printed in M13 originally and never reprinted. It says exile target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard and target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard. Copy those cards, cast those copies, if able, without paying the casting cost, or the mana cost, and then exile Spelltwine. So for 6 mana, you get the best instant or sorcery out of your graveyard and the best instant sorcery out of your opponent's graveyards. I mean...
For 28 cents?
For 28 whole cents. So this gets around the problem if you're in, if you're in blue, but you're looking... So I play a lot of blue-blackers. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed that I play a lot of Dimir.
Shall we talk about our recent one-on-one Jaleva versus Dragonlord Silumgar?
That was sorcery-tastic. I can't even remember how that ended. I think what he means, it was very Dimir-y, and Spelltwine, because we were both playing with big, stupid sorceries and instants, became a prescient card.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he had one and I had one too.
Yes.
And my Joyra went back and forth a couple times.
Yeah, she did. And suspending things and doing silly stuff. That game was a lot of fun.
And we both cast Rise of the Dark Realms.
We did. So I think we both board wiped, then cast Rise of the Dark Realms, and then did the same thing back again.
Oh my god.
With the Spelltwine. So what the Spelltwine is very good for if you're in blue and black in particular. So when you need that removal of a enchantment or artifact, it's in there. If someone casts an Austere Command, you can go and wipe all enchantments or artifacts. Or if your opponent... let me start that sentence again because I'm mangling it like Phil on a bottle of rum. What it allows you to do, so in our format people play with very powerful sorceries and instants. This allows you to have access to all of their stuff. I mean, it's a very Dimir-y card, and it just doesn't appear in that many decks, and I can't fathom why. Is it the casting cost? 6 seems very reasonable. You do occasionally get a situation where there are no instants or sorceries in your own graveyard because some mean person has exiled your graveyard, Nate, and you can't cast it because you have to have 2 targets for the spell. It's not a you may on either of them. But that's it. It's brilliant. Yeah, I can't say much more about Austere Command.
Spelltwine.
I can't say much more about Austere Command, but you are correct.
It's funny because when you put Spelltwine on this list, Sean, I was like, Spelltwine underrated? Like, who would underrate Spelltwine? And you rightly pointed out, I think you play me a lot, Phil. Although I've seen Spelltwine a couple of times in other decks, it's fantastic every time it comes out, but you're right, we don't see it enough. In fact, I'm going to put Spelltwine in every one of my blue decks now.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean by underrated cards.
Does it go in Mimeoplasm?
Oh, yeah, I'd run this in Mimeoplasm.
Yeah, put it in Mimeoplasm, Phil.
What are you baiting me to do?
I'm telling you to dilute your deck with Spelltwine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, maybe it won't go into Mimeoplasm, but we'll see.
I'd put it in there, but it's blue. So, yeah, I think what makes these cards very good, and it won't apply to all of them, but it's cards that can fit into any deck as well that you don't see being used. Anyway, someone else pick a choice, or we could talk about Spelltwine all day. Phil, choose a card.
All right. Well, my underrated card is... It's actually kind of a functional reprint, and so I'll name them both. It's Unravel the Aether and Deglamer. And they both read, they're both instants, 1 and a green, and it says, choose target artifact or enchantment. Its owner shuffles it into his or her library. And that's better in some ways than... it's better in almost all ways than Destroy, because Destroy goes into the graveyard, and in our format, the graveyard is accessible. And often, very often, an extension of the hand, which is why Nate was hating on it so much. Oh, the trauma. But, jeez. I mean, I am severely traumatized by this. My latest graveyard recursion deck actually has a category that is secondarily titled Nate Hate, because it has to get rid of all the graveyard hate that's out there, and Nate runs it.
Yeah.
And so at the very least, what it forces them to do is use a tutor to go get their cherry artifact or enchantment that they just put into their library, or they have to rely on card draw to pull this card out, right? And for all intents and purposes, it's gone.
There's an important aspect of these two cards that you haven't mentioned as well, is they are one of the only reliable ways of killing a god.
Oh, that's very true. If the god isn't your commander, then make sure that it gets tucked away and it's gone. Exiling is also as good, but since I play green in a lot of different colors and I sort of pivot around green, I don't always have access to the exile enchantment or exile artifact cards that white does.
Uh-huh. Yay!
Nate, do you have an underrated card?
Yeah, I do. So red players probably already know about Vandablast, and maybe they know about Shattering Spree, but sometimes destroying artifacts just isn't good enough. So, for 24 cents... casting for 2 and red into the core. Instant. Exile 2 target artifacts.
Yep, that is absolute value. Exile is very important.
Brutal.
Hey, nice Phyrexian watermark on that card as well.
Yeah, from the Greek letter phi.
Yes, Greek letter phi. Yeah, that's brutal, man. And I love the picture. It's got 2 indestructible creatures in that. What is that creature?
Those are Phyrexian juggernauts, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
It's a Phyrexian juggernaut. The front one. The back one.
It looks like it might be 2 of them.
Yeah, it's definitely 2 of them.
2 of them, yeah.
Oh, nasty.
Hang on, why is a Phyrexian watermarked card destroying Phyrexian creatures? That makes no sense.
Not all the Praetors get along.
Yeah, fair point, well made. Okay. I mean, that's just a solid card and certainly option. I guess people are put off it by 4 mana, but I think exiling 2, that's still bargaining. How much does that card cost to buy, Nate?
24 cent pence.
Cent pence. Okay, so my next card is an old classic, originally printed in Alpha Edition, but a lot of people overlook it for our format, and that is Royal Assassin. That's right, he's 1 and 2 black for a creature human assassin. He's a 1/1. He has tap, destroy target tapped creature. Coming in at a whopping 52 cent pence for, he's been reprinted a bunch of times. That was the cheapest one I could find. There's probably a cheaper white bordered one. So what this card does is he stops people attacking you with their best creature unless it's got hexproof. They sit there, and then he becomes very political because he sits on the table, and people will turn to you and say, "All right, so Nate will say, I'm going to attack Phil. Phil will look at me and say, are you going to Royal Assassin that? Let's pick a creature that Nate plays a lot. Reaper King. And I might say, that depends what you're going to give me, Phil. And then Nate might say, before his attack, presumably, what am I going to do to get an attack through at someone without you Royal Assassinating my Merieki Rebari, which has to tap to take control of a creature. I don't see why this card doesn't get played in more decks. Opinions, gents?
Well, not all decks have black in them.
That's true. Obviously, in reference to the colours that can play it. But I don't see it in a lot of black decks, then.
Well, it dies very easily. And I know that sounds very trite, and it's the standard issue, but I think there are... If you're looking for ways to destroy creatures, you want ways to destroy creatures that are harder to get around than this particular one.
I agree, and that is the weakness of the card. But I think what you're gaining from it actually isn't the destroy a creature ability, because there are better ways of doing that. Absolutely.
Right, it's the deterrent.
It's the deterrent that you're actually getting from this. As soon as he drops and comes online, because obviously he has Summoning Sickness, which is one of his other weaknesses, but once he's there, and he's not an automatic flagpole for creature removal, is he? Someone drops a Royal Assassin, no one goes, "Oh snap guys, we've got to kill that." So often he wheels and comes back to you. It's just it's a political card, and I think that's what you're investing in it. And as politics is such an important part of our format, I think he's underrated for that reason.
Okay, what happens if there's a goblin sharpshooter and it taps to deal 1 damage to the Royal Assassin? Can the Royal Assassin tap to destroy the target goblin sharpshooter? And then what happens?
Yes, because your ability goes on the stack. If you're tapping first, then my ability goes in the stack and it's last in, first out. So you wouldn't get to untap because you were dead before you dealt me the damage. But then you'd kill me after your sharpshooter died.
Yeah.
So they would kill each other.
Excellent.
Yeah. I love Goblin.
Spoken like a red
Goblin
player.
Sharpshooter is an amazing card, by the way, but we'll talk about it another time. Phil, your next choice.
So I've got, again, my underrated cards are, my second underrated card is a functional reprint, or I should say has been functionally reprinted. And it's the Apprentice Necromancer / Doomed Necromancer pair. And an Apprentice Necromancer, I'll read that one. It's a creature zombie wizard, so it goes great into zombie decks, right? And you spend a black and tap it, and you sacrifice Apprentice Necromancer to return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature gains haste, and at the beginning of the next end step, sacrifice it. The Doomed Necromancer is even a little bit better. Well, I guess it's a little bit better. It's a trade-off. It doesn't gain haste, but you don't have to sacrifice it. But again, in a graveyard recursion deck, especially in the brand new Marin of Clan Neltoth, a very popular commander after the Commander 2015 release, loves graveyard recursion. And both the Apprentice Necromancer and the Doomed Necromancer are fairly inexpensive. The Apprentice is at 1 and black. The Doomed Necromancer is 2 and a black, I guess because of the... you don't have to sacrifice the creature that you bring back, and so it fits in really well to those decks.
Interestingly, I didn't put Apprentice Necromancer into my Marin deck because I automatically presumed that you would exile the creature you brought back at the end of turn rather than just sacrifice it, because normally effects that do this, Puppeteer Clique and Whip of Erebos spring to mind.
How about Felden or Cedrus?
Yeah, Cedrus unearths. Felden exiles, yep. So normally effects that do this exile the card that they bring back or the token that they create if they create a token. This does not. It sacrifices it, so it goes back to the graveyard. Wow, I'm going to have to edit this into my Marin deck.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I mean, I think what's going to happen is the Marin decks, especially as we play against each other, they're going to start to converge. And for what it's worth, Felden sacrifices the creature artifact token that it creates.
Yeah, but because it's a token it creates, it effectively doesn't get rid of the card out of the graveyard, does it? So, very nice.
No. Yep, it's a wonderful card. Good little gem I discovered while playing Athreos, actually. Nate, what's your next underrated card?
My next few cards might not be everyone's cup of tea, but Ashling the Pilgrim has got to do what Ashling the Pilgrim's got to do. Curse of Marit Lage, 33 cents. When Curse of Marit Lage comes into play, tap all islands. Islands do not untap during their controller's untap phase.
That's just mean.
Wow.
Just mean. Boo!
That's
Boo!
that's pretty brutal.
I just want to make a brief comment. That might be one of the best pieces of artwork I've ever seen on a card on Curse of Marit. That is a swordfish and a seahorse having some sort of party before getting blooped by a big blue cloud, and there's some fish going on there, and that's just great.
I think that big blue cloud is the sea, isn't it?
No, it's encroaching over the ruins. I think it's Marit Lage. Because Marit Lage is the big sea beast frozen in the frozen depths, isn't it?
From the dark depths.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I happen to be looking at a copy of Dark Depths right now.
As long as you're not also looking at a copy of Vampire Hexmage, that's fine with me.
Oh, no, not at the same time, of course. Who would ever do that?
No, he's just got a couple Thieves of Blood in his sleeve there.
Oh, I forgot about Thief of Blood doing that as well. Ugh. So, go on, Nate. Move on to your next hateful cards.
All right, so my next couple of cards. Flashfires for 23 cents.
I was going to ask if you had any other hate for particular land types in this.
For 3 and a red, it's a sorcery. Destroy all planes. And next is Boil for 34 cents. And Boil is for 3 and a red. This one's an instant. Destroy all islands. And there's also a sorcery version called Boiling Seas.
Now, there's a card.
Nate.
I can't remember what it's called, but there's one that's destroy a land in play. It's red sorcery and destroy all copies of the land of the same name. Oh, it's bothering me. I can't remember what it's called, though. But there's a big version of this, and it's horrible.
Oh, I don't remember what that is. Nate, you should go on, though. I think this next card is... Well,
on
you
theme.
Should go on.
Okay. So, staying on theme, Omen of Fire for 41 cents. 3, red. Instant. Return all islands to their owner's hands.
Oh my god.
And then, each player sacrifices a plains or a white permanent for each white permanent he or she controls.
If I played more whites, Nate, I would hate you right now.
Wow, Nate. What's with the hate?
And my total is $1.55.
Very nice.
Oh my.
Okay.
Wow, I'm just reeling from that. Sean, this is brutal. What have we done to Nate?
We've created a poisoned, jaded man.
You have opposed me.
Yeah.
I'll go through the next few of mine relatively quickly. So, what's the best colour for exiling your opponent's creatures?
White, of course.
It is white. It's not blue, is it? So why do I never see people play with Reality Shift, which is 1 and a blue for an instant, exile target creature, its control or manifest the top card of their library. I mean, forgetting the manifest bit for a start, to 1 and a blue for instant speed, exile target creature, no other condition on it, is fantastic, and especially outside the colour wheel, because blue does not exile stuff like that outside of Phyrexian Ingester, especially not instant speed. Second thing, manifest top card of their library. You could argue it's going to be risky because they can flip it up, but they were going to draw that card next anyway, and if it was a creature, they could have cast it anyway.
Or if they just cast some kind of tutor that put their stuff on top of their library.
I was just about to say. So anyone that casts Vampiric Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, but they might get a creature with that one, but Enlightened Tutor, Mystical Tutor, you go, okay, cool, you're going to manifest that card, which I happen to know isn't a creature, so you can't flip it. That's 28 cents. I get a feeling that one might go up to a little bit more in the future because it was an uncommon and, it's already 28 cents and it's still in print, so that one could go up. Phil, your next card?
Well, hang on. Is Curse of the Swine considered underrated?
Curse of the Swine is considered underrated, but we've discussed it before several times.
All right.
But Curse of the Swine, we might as well mention it. Curse of the Swine is an X spell that exiles, it's a sorcery, X creatures, and puts a 2/2 boar token, pig token, onto the table for each creature it exiles. It is very good. I've noticed it creeping up in more and more decks,
Curse of the Swine?
Yeah, Kelle DeLuca, I've seen that being played against me several more times. Like, notably, I even thought to myself, not so long ago, Kelle DeLuca's becoming a thing in EDH, is it?
I'm just thinking through that. That's pretty good. The applications of that are pretty good.
So, exiling creatures in blue. Go, guys, go!
Yeah. What's your next one, Sean?
Well, next one is a little bit mana intensive, but it's Aeon Chronicler. So, he's pretty terrible card as printed without one of his abilities. He's got 3 blue for a star creature avatar. His power and toughness is equal to the number of cards in your hand. So, yeah, not great. But he has suspend for 3 blue and X. X cannot be 0. When a time counter is removed... So, what suspend does, people that don't know, it puts X time counters onto the card that's been suspended. Whenever a time counter is removed from Aeon Chronicler, whilst it's exiled with suspend, draw a card. So if you've got some mana, you can dump it into the Aeon Chronicler, suspend it, and you've got yourself a personal Howling Mine that doesn't affect everybody else for X turns. So, yeah, he comes in with 4 plus X time counters on him. Oh, sorry, no, he comes in just with X time counters on him. Ignore that last bit.
That's really good.
Yeah, I run him in the Crewfix God of Horizons Eldrazi deck, so it generates a lot of mana. But even if you pump, it's later game, even if you dump 3 into him, you get 3 cards over the course of a few turns, and then in a card draw deck, which is presumably what he's going to go into, you end up with a relatively okay creature when he does come in.
Do you run Aeon Chronicler because it looks like Crewfix?
He does look like Crewfix. I never even thought about that. Well, Phil, you might have Vorfossed onto something there. And that is a whopping, if you want to buy one of them, that is a whopping 37 cent pennies.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, he's got like a bunch of bandages behind him, like Greel the Mindbreaker.
I think they
that's
are
true.
the Chronicles of the Eons, because he's reading them, and then they're wrapped around his waist for his modesty. No self-respected Aeon Chronicler wants to show his junk to those people, does he?
No, especially not at their current
No,
level.
it's true. He is.
While I read this...
I wouldn't want to be rude to these people. I am 12 foot tall, which means my junk area is always in their face. And he's coming through a Stargate. Look at that. He is coming through a Stargate.
All sorts of weird things come through Stargates.
It's true, you can never trust Stargates.
Yeah.
Sometimes David Spade comes through Stargates, and he's just creepy.
What?
David Spade from the Stargate? He played the guy, didn't he? Ultron.
What?
Spader. James Spader. Not David Spade.
David Spade is... Yep, okay, I'm there now. Right, yep.
Yeah.
James Spader comes through Stargates, and he's a bit icky, so you don't want that to happen. David Spade would be a very different film. Very different film indeed.
Oh my.
The last one then is a very quick nod to the Painlands, the cycle of 10 Painlands. What we mean by Painlands is they're a land that comes into play. You can tap it for 1 colourless mana, or you can tap it to add 1 of its dual colour. So I've given Shivan Reef as an example. Add a red or a blue to your mana pool and you take 1 damage. So what this does, late game, you're very rarely going to tap these for their coloured mana. You'll always just tap them for the colourless, and unless you're really stuck for fixing. And these cost between $1 and $2 each, depending on what colour you're in. And how much does a revised dual land that comes into play untapped and can tap for 1 of each colour on the first turn cost, guys?
At minimum, it's like $90.
Yeah, and these cost between $1 and $2. So I've put it in at like $1.63 was the Shivan Reef, which was the first one I pulled.
My Marquesa uses it to keep herself off the throne.
There you go. Yes, it does.
Yeah, that's pretty useful, isn't it?
So, Llanowar Wastes is the green-black one, and I won't name them all because you'll get bored quite quickly, but they're great, and a load of them have just been reprinted in Magic Origins. Were all 10 reprinted at Origins, or was it just the allied coloured ones? I forget.
Yeah, I don't recall. I bet it was the Allied color.
Llanowar Wastes is printed in it, so it must be all 10 is in Origins. So they're currently in print. Don't overlook them. Honestly.
Yeah, and their price is high because they are in Standard right now, so everybody from Modern to Standard players is playing these.
Yeah, honestly, they get a lot of scorn because of that 1 point of damage, but people play fetch lands, and they do your point of damage when you sack them. And beyond turn, 5, you're seldom going to be tapping these for the non-colorless mana.
No, that's very true. That's very true. I definitely agree with you. These are underrated. And in truth, I've been underrating them because I don't play these. In part because they're not fetchable.
So you would use it for colorless mana if you were casting Kozilek the Great Distortion?
Yes, you would.
That's true. Yes, you would.
It's even better. Now, it is true you can't fetch these, so they don't, unlike the have lands and the shock lands, and obviously the original dual lands, if you're lucky enough to own those, these don't have basic land types attributed to them, so you can't fetch them. But I'd still chuck it in instead of one of your basic lands in your deck.
Yeah, just remember that if since we tend to run light on basic lands, what this does is reduce the number of targets for your myriad landscapes and your green ramp spells. But yeah, otherwise this is pretty good. And it's definitely a cut above a guild gate. So don't run guild gates. Run these. For everyone's sake, your own especially. Don't run guild gates.
Just don't. Come on. There are better ways.
Unless you have a Maze's End win.
That's true. If you have a Maze's End, then you should run guild gates.
Listener Pete runs a Super Friends deck that has Maze's End as its secondary win condition, and he's never pulled it off. And we've never let him. He's got close, and someone's just, right when he's got that 9th one out, gone, yeah, we're going to Stone Rain that.
We selected a couple of listener comments who also wrote in with their underrated cards. And Nate, you should read this first one, if only because you're the only one we'll trust to say his name.
Nyarlathotep Hotep Bro says, Spore Frog for green. It's a creature frog. 1/1. Sacrifice Spore Frog. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. That's at Johnny Crass. And so, Sean, tell us about Marin of Clan Neltoth.
Oh, God in heaven.
So, this, he's even out of the colour square, but this has rapidly become one of my favourite ever cards printed. So, he is the perfect Marin of Clan Neltoth card. Because I do run some tutors in Marin, this is the first card I tutor for in every single game if I don't draw him. You play him for 1 green, so he comes down early doors for a cheeky fog if someone's trying to get some early damage in with, I don't know, there's numerous commanders, like a Rafik of the Many deck. He'll just sit there and go, yeah, you can go kill someone else on turn 4, you boring bleep. And then, because he's so low to cast, and he is his own sack outlet, he's the perfect card for getting that first counter on Marin when she comes out, first experience counter. And then, because he's only 1 to cast, you sack him when Marin comes down, and immediately get him back on the turn you've cast Marin. And he doesn't just fog you, he becomes super political. So playing paper cards yesterday, there's someone playing with a, Zergo Helm Smasher deck. And we had one player on my right, he was sitting opposite me, the Zergo player. Player on my right was mana screwed, had nothing on the table. Player on my left had Karlia of the Vast out with a ton of stuff and hadn't bothered attacking me. Didn't even bother to attack me because I had a Spore Frog out. I let him attack the Zergo player and did a load of damage to him. The Zergo player, I said, right, Neil, he was called. Neil, if you attack me, or Scoops who's mana screwed, I'm going to fog. If you attack the Karlia player, I'm not going to fog. Go! So it's like I had my own Zergo player in my pocket.
And have you politically used it to save Phil from certain doom on numerous occasions?
I did politically use it to save Phil from certain doom a couple of times. I forget who was playing, Nate. Who were we playing? It was me, Phil, and some other guy who was being really mean. Who was it? Oh, it was you, wasn't it, Nate? Yeah, I remember now.
Maybe.
And then Phil nearly didn't save me in a game, and I had to remind him of what I'd done for him previously in a prior game. And
quite useful, actually, the Spore Frog.
Yeah, cross-game debts. I don't know about those.
oh no, I just told him there would be no future Spore Frogging for him, and he knew what that meant.
Oh, wow.
Yep, and you know what? I had come to love the Spore Frog, and so I used that Maze of Ith. But honestly, that first round, I totally forgot that I had just played the Maze of Ith. That's my only comment there.
Cross-game politics, it's that good.
So instead of Marin with Spore Frog, if you are playing Atheros God of Passage, there's a white version of Spore Frog called Cameo False Hope. And politically, you can save people and ask them, hey, can I have my Cameo False Hope back?
Oh, you clever man, you. You clever man.
Yeah, that's really good.
I was about to say how, well, surely you just pay the 3 life. And then it's like, oh yeah, hang on. You just make a deal with the person whose backside you're saving.
All right. I would say both of these cards fall into the underrated banner because, frankly, I had never even seen a Spore Frog until the playtest the other day. And then Cameo False Hope I have seen but never actually employed. Definitely underrated.
Spore Frog's art, super cute. I imagine,
it really
I've never heard them talk about it, but I imagine Maria and Megan from MTA Cast would love this card.
Yes, they probably
Because I love
would.
it already, and I'm not really into the super cute thing, but he's awesome. I would like a plush of Spore Frog.
Complete with the fog that it's emitting from its various, whatever those are, spiracles.
Yes. Spiracles is the right word. Yes. Oh, and why aren't we calling him the Fog Frog? Because that's clearly his name.
Yeah, that is. He's the Fog Frog. And then Johnny Crass also listed the Tomb of Urami. And the Tomb of Urami is tap to add black to your mana pool. Tomb of Urami deals 1 damage to you if you don't control an ogre. So hey, what's the deal here? And then 2 and black tap to sacrifice all lands you control. To put a legendary 5/5 black demon spirit creature token with flying named Urami into play.
There's got to be some sort of shenanigan going on with that to make that worthwhile.
Absolutely, because I cannot see trading my 9 or so lands in for a 5/5 black demon spirit, even with flying. But yeah, so Johnny, if you can let us know what the shenanigans are you're doing there.
Without shenanigans, is it a late game play where you've got loads of land?
Is he already playing like Armageddon and things that destroy all lands anyway?
Could be.
And so he taps all his mana and then destroys everyone's lands and then just get a free demon? Seems, I don't know.
Yeah, it's got to be shenanigans. There's got to be a Crucible of Worlds in play somewhere. All right, so at Charles_Moore, or Charles Moreau, he wrote a long letter and explained how these are used. The first card is Urban Evolution. For 3, a green and a blue, it's a sorcery. Draw 3 cards. You may play an additional land this turn. Not bad, not bad. And he says there are no stories. He has no stories linked to it, but it's one of his favorite Simic sorceries, and I can see why. It's definitely underrated because I have actually looked at this card several times. I own a couple of copies and never managed to put it into one of my decks. That's just stupid. I should just play it.
Yeah, after I saw this, I've decided to cut Animist's Awakening from my Krudrazi deck and put this in just as a direct replacement.
Yeah, that may be a good choice. His second underrated card is certainly not a budget card. Oh, an Urban Evolution. It costs pennies. It's
Urban Evolution is an uncommon from Returns Ravnica, I believe.
Yeah, Return. It's available for pennies, Evolution. It's 22 cents median price on TCG right now, and it's from Gatecrash. His second card is a little bit pricier, and it's called Conspiracy.
That's a good one, though.
Yeah, Conspiracy is awesome. Conspiracy is 3 and black for an enchantment that says, as Conspiracy comes into play, or so as it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creature cards you own that aren't in play, creature spells you control, and creatures you control are the chosen type. So it's an instant tribal card.
$1.14.
Yeah,
What?
$1.14 in a time spiral version, a time shifted, reprint.
That is amazing. And so he points out it's the all-star of his Shadowborn Apostle deck, which is Athreos as the general, and it makes his angels into demons.
Makes everything into demons.
Anyone else think of anything automatically abusive to do with this?
I don't have it in my Reaper King Scarecrows.
Well, because every creature is a
scarecrow.
is a scarecrow. Actually, you have a couple of mirror, don't you?
He does have a couple of mirror.
Yeah, but they're just a couple artifact creatures with recursion.
So, yeah.
Yeah, right, it's not
I think this would go well with any deck that's seriously running Coat of Arms. I suppose Coat of Arms already kills you. It's win more. Win more is bad.
Well, you definitely run all of the standard tribal cards that we talked about in our Tribal Halloween series.
There's a difference between Winmore and Finisher.
Oh, that's right. And you use Coat of Arms as a
I agree,
finisher.
but I'm saying Coat of Arms is a finisher, so I think Conspiracy and Coat of Arms together is a win more when the coat already finishes on its own. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because if you're running Coat of Arms as a finisher, you've probably already got enough elves, Nate, to to finish the game off. Oh, that NAF deck. I'm going to find it and kill it.
That Nath deck is seriously
it's
broken.
great.
I didn't want to build Elf Tribal because they all seem so, happy and cheerful elves and then, Nath.
Yeah, the Guilt Leaf are not cheerful. They're arrogant, pompous, superior. They're like the Mirkwood elves from Lord of the Rings.
So they're sort of like British elves.
Correct. Welcome to the Guilt Leaf Empire. Yeah, so Charles Moreau has a couple of stories of his Conspiracy.
And now, Sean, you got a tweet from someone with a fantastic card in a fantastic color.
Yes, I got a teat. I didn't get a teat.
A teat,
I did not
huh?
get a teat from this person. That would be wrong. I got a David... Learn how to speak today. I got a tweet from David Greet, who is at Specky Geek.
This isn't hard to say at all.
His card is Brutalizer Exarch. It has great utility. It's a black/blue utility card in the missing mystery 5th colour. It is. So it's 5 and a... Is it green? Never heard of that colour before. Green. 5 and a green for a creature cleric. It is a 3/3. When Brutalizer Exarch enters the battlefield, choose one. Search your library for a creature card, reveal it, then shuffle your library and put that card on top of it, or target non-creature permanent onto the bottom of its owner's library. So go tuck away that annoying thing that isn't a creature.
That god.
Superb. And I've seen this abused in Bant decks where you flicker it a lot.
Yeah, this goes in any deck that has a Conjurer's Closet.
Yeah.
And is playing green. Really, it goes in any green deck. It's just, for me, it's a staple. Because the Plane Chase version, of course, is the only version that exists.
The original Beautiful Perfect version has a Phyrexian watermark on it, doesn't it?
No, it has a Plane Chase symbol.
Does it really go into every green deck?
Well, many green decks at the very least. I say every because of hyperbole, but let me think about it. And I know it's in Mimeoplasm, it's in Marit. Each of my green decks has this.
I think because green is focused around creatures and it does what is essentially it's a tutor. Yeah, how much is Worldly Tutor to buy pounds wise? It's got to be
like
$5 to
$5.
$7 depending on whether you want a white border or a black border. This is pennies for this, and it casts a Worldly Tutor for a lot more mana, but it has utility because it's modal. It gives you access to that second ability, which is essentially destroy anything that isn't a creature.
Yeah.
Gets rid of Maze of Ifs, does awkward lands. When someone plays, I don't know, Gaia's Cradle, friend of the show, Nick Jaragoski, it can go tuck that. Yeah, I don't run it in any of my green decks, though. And I'm trying to think what I would cut to put it in, but it is such a great utility card.
Yeah, especially in Marin, right? And this is one of the first cards I put into Marin because it just vaporizes Like, it'll recur, and so every turn, possibly, you could be recurring this thing and getting rid of the biggest problem to your deck.
Yeah.
It's no Terrastodon, but it's pretty good.
On a side note, I got recurring Hornet Queen again last night. It is a beautiful feeling to recur Hornet Queen.
It is. It is, and I'm telling you, if you've got a Conjurer's Closet in play, you can do that and just keep doing it. I have in Paper Magic built up quite an army of angry hornets.
Sorry, I was just thinking of green cards that have high CMCs that Merrin recurs, which is why Hornet Queen. And every time I think of green cards, my brain, in a happy green haze, just floats back to Hornet Queen and a massive smile goes on my face.
Yeah.
Conjurer's Closet is 61 cents.
Oh, that's a great card. I'm not sure it's underrated because I see it a lot. But it is a great card that everyone should buy some. And it's not been printed a whole bunch. People should buy Conjurer's Closets.
Yeah, I might have to pick a couple of those up. It's too bad I wasn't thinking about that in Japan. I would have loved to have a Japanese Conjurer's Closet.
We should have an official creature of the show, and I think Hornet Queen might be creature of the show. I don't mean this episode, I mean the whole show.
That's kind of ironic coming from you.
I know, but it's that good.
It really is good. It really is good. Especially if you know you're recurring it and getting more hornets back, because then you can attack, and really no one's going to throw their creatures in the way unless they're indestructible creatures. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Nate, Hornet Queen, creature of the show?
There's a lot of creatures.
Maybe we should put a vote out to our listeners. Who's going to be the face creature of our show?
Well, let's do this in an organized way. So listeners, be on the lookout for our Creature of the Show contest. Maybe we'll do one annually just to reflect the changing nature of magic. Well, this week we actually have a message of the week. It comes from someone who heard, someone close to me, I'll admit, who heard that we may or may not have a funny podcast. And so don't look down at the message of the week if you haven't already, because we have our first quasi-listener submitted joke. It's, why aren't seagulls down by the bay?
They are down by the bay. They're all over the place. You go down to the bay, they're all over.
You're ruining this poor 10-year-old's life as a comedian. You're just stifling it. Why do you hate children, Nate?
I'm just dissecting the logic of the joke.
Because then they would be bagels. All right. We love our listeners. We really do. You're fun. We've spent a lot of time with listeners this week, too, on Skype and playtesting some decks. And they tell us what they're thinking about. You know, they tell us what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, what they liked, what they didn't like, making suggestions. They even, as I've alluded to, they play test decks with us. So please take the time to reach out to us, contact us, and if you like us, you know, rate us. But otherwise, I'm not going to beg for it this week. Next week, I'll beg for it. But if you do give us ratings, we can point to that and say, hey, look at these ratings. People really dig us. You should come on our show. And so our theme song, that fantastic theme song you heard just before we began our show in earnest, was created specifically, Sean, specifically for the podcast.
Who by?
By Nate Burgess.
No. Shut your mouth.
Yes. No, I know. I need to shut my American mouth. But yes, Nate actually created this theme song. He composed it. He performed it. And it has served oh so well. It sets the tone of the show perfectly. Our logo was created for the podcast by Mr Picto, who can be reached at mrpicto.co.uk with assistance from Kelle DeLuca. Special thanks to our tech whizzes Jesse Thompson and Graham Frank, and to Justin for the service space. Thank you again, Justin. Sean, how can people reach us?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Philip. You can reach us by going to our website, which is, of course, commanderin.mtg.com. Our email...
What?
I know. Our email is cast@commanderin.mtg.com. And continuing a theme, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, mtgcast.com, reddit.com, iTunes, and podbay.fm by looking for
That's right.
Commander in MTG podcast. Individually on Twitter, do we have our own identities, chaps?
Yep, I'm Mr. Plurg.
That's good to know, Nate. I'm at Copain26.
And I'm at Cat Jack. I was saving it for that, Sean. I'm sorry.
On that musical note, that is our show. Hey!
Yay!
Yeah! Yeah!
Commanderin!
Yeah!
Bam, 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 cool theme song! Yeah!